The World Federation of Engineering Organizations, the sole interdisciplinary international engineering organization's umbrella of the Engineering Federation of Africa, Asia, America, Europe, the Commonwealth, and the Arab countries, is intended to be that mechanism for professional engineers. The World Federation of Engineering Organization intends to be that purpose-driven organization where engineers from around the world can learn from each other, listen to others, transfer their knowledge and skills to others. The World Federation of Engineering Organization is working closely with such United Nations, multilateral agencies, and sister institutions as UNESCO South-South Center for Technology Transfer based in Kuala Lumpur, ICSU, the International Council for Science, the International Engineer Alliance, the last one focused on one strategic issue nowadays, the engineer mobility and the international accreditation system. As past president of the World Federation of Engineering Organization, I'm very proud to say that our standing technical committees have delivered excellent guidebooks, codes, and methodologies in capacity building for sustainable development, disaster risk management, energy, and engineering ethics, among others. Next week in Singapore, a new release, the World Federation Model Code of Practices for Sustainable Development and Environmental Stewardship, will be submitted for approval to the General Assembly, proposed by the Standing Technical Committee, Engineering and Environment. In line with this, allow me to suggest a few things to you, a few fundamental things that you, as Chinese engineers, should do as far as your authorities and responsibilities will allow. Do your job well, always taking into account the social consequences of your decisions. In your designs, development, and procedures, try to bring them in line with the best standards of efficiency and environmental care. Be thorough, ethical, and respectful. Offer services, advice, or undertake engineering assignment only in areas where you are competent and prepared. Keep yourselves informed in order to maintain your competence. Strive to advance the body of knowledge you have and adapt your knowledge to changing conditions. The World Federation of Engineering Organization is unique position to promote global cooperation in engineering practice for economic and social progress. And it has identified as priority to draw students in sustainable engineering and to promote the mobility and accreditation of graduate engineers to make sure that there will be enough qualified and experienced engineers worldwide. In closing, globalization and sharing technological knowledge offer incredible opportunities, but exclusion, granting poverty, and environmental damage create dangers. The searching for inclusive, sustainable development is not longer an option for reducing poverty and bringing welfare and peace. The engineering profession is without any doubt the profession par excellence for the conversion of knowledge into social progress. But engineers should strive to transcend the professional engineering sphere and enhance public awareness and policymakers of the social impact of engineering activity and the technological options. The interrelated forces of globalization and information technology are producing so many changes that every region in the planet must define what role it wants to play. And this is especially important for China. As Chinese engineers, you are engineers from a privileged country. Chinese civilization, one of the world's earliest civilizations, is today the world's fastest growing major economy. As of 2013, the world's second largest economy. In the past 5 years, China contributed in a great percentage of total global growth. But the time is right for social progress. China is a great and beautiful country, but let me say humbly, China lacks knowledge-sharing networks and needs to move from an intensive manufacturing economy to an intensive knowledge-based economy. I was pleased to hear last July 17, the Chinese President Xi Jinping called for a greater focus on scientific innovation and making it the driving force for China's development. And you, as Chinese engineers, are the main actors involved in this process. You, as Chinese engineers, should be part of the decision-making process. You have to be in the driver's seat. This great institution that is the China Association for Science and Technology, the largest non-governmental organization of scientific and technological workers, and each one of its national members, as the Chinese Society for Electrical Engineering, as China Society in Strategic Sustainable Growth, as past president of the maximum representative body for engineering worldwide, I encourage you to put your knowledge to work for a sustainable future for humanity. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Ms. Hala Razia. The title of her presentation is Low Carbon Green Growth for Asia and the Pacific, turning resource constraints and the climate crisis into economic growth. Ms. Hararazian is currently working for the United Nations Economic and Social Commission of Asia and the Pacific, Environment and Development Policy section. She holds a Bachelor of Sciences degree in Business Administration and Master of Science in degree in Development Study and Master of Environmental Management. So, let's welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be here this morning, and for that I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this meeting for gathering us all here today. I truly believe the conversations that we can have today and over the next few days can shape our common future together. I'd also like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to present to you today among such auspicious speakers, the Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific's Low Carbon Green Growth Roadmap, turning resource constraints and the climate crisis into economic opportunities. I hope that this brief presentation can throw some fire and some fuel from renewable and clean sources, of course, onto the discussions that we'll have over the next few days. At ESCAP, we believe that green growth can turn crisis into opportunity, whether it's by seeing something in a completely different way and using it for something useful, or by deriving energy from sources where we never thought it was possible before. We believe that green growth can develop an inclusive, resilient, and prosperous Asia-Pacific region not by imposing environmental conditionalities on growth or by putting a price on nature, but by creating the conditions for sustainable development that is necessary to eradicate the poverty that's pervasive in the region. We believe that green growth is a positive agenda for sustainable development, as well as a key strategy for implementing it. By trying to develop a synergy between the economic, the social, and the environmental, instead of focusing on trade-offs and just trying to balance them together. But to achieve the promise of green growth requires a bold and concerted effort and a transformation of our entire economic system. In 2005, ministers from the Asia-Pacific region gathered together at the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Environment and Development, hosted by the Republic of Korea and in partnership with ESCAP. At that forum, the ministers agreed to pursue environmentally sustainable growth that addresses poverty eradication at the same time. I think since that time, words like the Green New Deal, the green economy, we even heard them this morning, have become commonplace in our... Thank you. These kind of words have become commonplace in our lexicon. In fact, I have on my email a Google alert for the words green economy and green growth, and every day I receive at least 4 or 5 links from around the world sharing with me different programs, different projects, different policies that are working to put this kind of growth, this green growth in place. But despite this awareness across the globe that green growth is necessary, especially in a developing world context, to eradicate poverty, there's no blueprint. There's no pathway that people can follow in a holistic manner. That's why in 2012, ESCAP, after much research and effort, published our low carbon green growth roadmap. The roadmap, which consists of a research paper, an executive summary, over 50 case studies, 60 fact sheets, and 8 policy papers, tries to give policymakers and decision makers in the region the tools to move from this awareness into implementation and to turn the trade-offs that they've been struggling with into a synergy for sustainable development. We've heard this morning about the incredible growth in the Asia-Pacific region, and no one can deny that this growth has lifted millions out of poverty over the past decades. This growth has been based on what we can call a brown growth model. It's a model that usually exploits natural resources and cheap labor. I can share with you a statistic. The Asia-Pacific region uses 3 times more resources to produce 1 unit of GDP than the rest of the world. This is highly resource intensive, yet the per capita consumption of resources is still very low, which points to a pervasive poverty. The current brown growth economic system is failing. It's failing financially, it's failing socially, and it's failing environmentally. Financially, in 2011, ESCAP reported that 42 million people were pushed back down into poverty because of rising fuel and food prices. Socially, you need but look at the indicators to see that disparity is widespread across the region and growing between the rich and the poor. And environmentally, scientists have placed us in the 6th extinction period of the history of our planet, comparing this to the time when the dinosaurs disappeared and the ice age took over. At the same time, we are facing crises that we have never before faced in our history. An energy crisis, a resource crisis, a climate crisis. What's clear is that we cannot cope with these emerging crises with an economic system that is already showing cracks and failing us now. What we need is to move away from this brown cycle of growth that focuses on quantity of growth towards a cycle that focuses on the quality of growth. There's definitely no one-size-fits-all model that we can propose. Every country has different socioeconomic situations, and every country should then, too, develop its own green growth policies suitable to those conditions. And the roadmap doesn't propose to give the answer. What we're proposing here are 5 key tracks that, when followed holistically, can provide the foundations where policymakers and decision makers can develop their strategies. And I'd like to go over those very briefly with you now. The first, as I touched upon, is to shift from a focus on the quantity of growth to the quality of growth in order to maximize net growth. The transition to a green economy needs to start with this shift. This image you see behind me is a very basic depiction of the way our economy functions. It uses 4 main capitals: manufactured, which is the roads and factories and cars that we build; human capital, which is us, the labor; social capital, the institutions that hold it all together, like the market structure; and natural capital, the air, the water, the earth. Our economy uses these things to create the goods and services that feed into the overall well-being of society. What the traditional growth model does is oftentimes take the goods and redirect them directly into the manufactured capital. More cars, bigger factories, more production. What often happens at the same time is that the bads produced, pollution, ecological degradation, are often suffered by the other 3 types of capital. The problem here is that these types of capital are only replaceable to a certain extent. By continuing to pursue growth that focuses only on quantity, we are undermining the very foundations of our well-being. What ESCAP is proposing is a shift in this invention towards the quality of growth, investing the goods that come out of our economy into the social, natural, and human capital, as well as into the mechanic capital. In this way, you can create, instead of the vicious cycle that we're trapped in, a virtuous cycle. For example, when you invest in your labor force and educate it, you have a more productive labor force. When farmers are better able to manage their land, they have higher yields. This kind of virtuous cycle can propel growth in the region that's necessary to eradicate poverty. The second track that ESCAP is proposing is to change the invisible structure of the economy. The invisible structure is the market, the rules and regulations, our social behavior, our lifestyles. It's the stuff that holds everything together. ESCAP is proposing a series of market and regulatory-based instruments that can shift this invisible structure towards eco-efficiency. Instruments, for example, like mandatory technical standards or cap-and-trade systems. Some critics believe that these kind of conditionalities on the economy eventually lead to its destruction and to a malfunctioning economy. On the contrary, what ESCAP is proposing that if properly and well-designed, gradually implemented environmental tax and fiscal reform can produce the growth necessary for the region if it follows 3 core principles. The first, very simply, tax the bads, not the goods. Tax the things that you want to have less of, like pollution, and ease taxation or promote things that you want to have more of, like labor and capital. The second, strive for a revenue neutrality. Instead of just imposing a new tax burden, think about redirecting the profits received from that tax to accommodate the shift. Or think about decreasing already existing taxes on labor and capital to remain neutral. And third, always strive in your policy making towards the double dividend: improved growth and employment and decreased environmental impact. If these 3 core principles are followed, we believe that green growth can achieve the desired outcomes. The third track, I don't think I need to say very much about, as everyone here is incredibly more experienced and expert as I am myself. But I'd like to share with you a fact uncovered that over the next few years, between 8 and 10 trillion US dollars in investment is needed for infrastructure in the region to change this visible infrastructure. 68% of that is for new capacity. And as we know very well, new capacity can lock us into a system of production and consumption for a very long time. That's why ESCAP is advocating that the Asia-Pacific region has a small and fast closing window of opportunity where we can redirect investment towards low-carbon infrastructure and avoid being trapped in a high-intensity, high-carbon economy that spirals in a vicious cycle. 4, greening business. This kind of change is going to create huge opportunity for businesses, and we advocate that businesses seize that